In this video, I'm going to react to what is going to be the 51st American state. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. This is the place where I react to music, media, sports, anime, anything related to popular culture. I'll watch it with an open mind and give you my 100% honest reaction to it. And if you could please hit that like button early, I'd really appreciate it. Now this should be fascinating because I've always wondered, so America has 50 states. Like, is that number locked forever, or potentially could more states be added on? And how would that work? Would it simply be maybe another area of land outside of the US is added to the US, or could it be an existing state splits in half? Really interesting topic, and this channel has been recommended to me a few times, general knowledge, and I think they do like a really great job in tackling quite complex topics, because this topic here, I imagine there's probably a lot of technical talk that would be involved in it, and considering how many views it's got, I'm sure he must have just taken all of that complex information and condensed it into a nice sort of digestible video. So yeah, let's do it. So this is going to be me reacting to what is going to be the 51st American state. Let's do it. All right.
States. America is a country consisting of 50 states, a federal district, 5 major self-governing territories, and various possessions. But the way the territory is organized might change soon. Territories might become states, and possessions might become territories. So in this video, I want to take a look at what might be the 51st US state. A quick mention to let you know that this video is sponsored by World of Warships. Today, the US has 50 states, but this number has changed a lot since its creation. 13 colonies revolted against the British, and one by one, these initial 13 ratified the 1787 Constitution, thus being admitted one by one into the Union. Delaware was technically the first, followed by the other 12 very soon after. As time went by, more and more territories became states and joined as well. Usually the progression was made east to west, with the exception of the West Coast, California, Oregon, Nevada, and Washington, which joined before some of the Midwest. The last continental state to join was...
I wonder why California joined before other states in the Midwest. I'm sure that in itself is quite an interesting topic.
Arizona in 1912, and Alaska and Hawaii were the final ones, joining in 1959, with the American flag changing every time more states were admitted, adding
each just another star to the flag, right?
One more star per state. And since 1959, for 61 years, no other states have joined the Union, but some could. Even if we set aside all the possessions, which one could argue are too small to be a state, the US still have their federal district, 5 major self-governing territories, and any of these, plus some other specific ones, could make a case for their admittance to the Union. Before that, and very quickly, like I mentioned, today's video is sponsored by World of Warships. I know sometimes sponsored messages are annoying, but they really do help the channel, plus I think you will like this one. Back to the video. What are these possible new states that might occupy the 51st slot, and maybe even more? First, the federal district. That is Washington, D.C., formerly the District of Columbia, and this is the capital of the United States. The U.S. Constitution provided for a federal district under the exclusive jurisdiction of the U.S. Congress, and the district is therefore not a part of any U.S. state. The states of Maryland and Virginia each donated land to form the federal district. Washington had an estimated population of 702,000 people as of July 2018, making it the 20th most populous city in the United States. It's also more populous just as a city than the state of Vermont or the state of Wyoming. However,
interesting. So in terms of population, it wouldn't be out of place. It wouldn't be just dwarfed by all the other states if it were to become a state.
However, despite all these people, they don't really have representation, going against the US's ideals in their revolt against the British of no taxation without representation. DC has one delegate to the House of Representatives, but he doesn't get to vote. Plus, they don't have a Senate representative. Statehood would change this and allow the people who live there to have representation. It would also allow full control of local authorities over the territory, since currently the final word of authority belongs to Congress itself. But some people claim this wouldn't be a good idea. The US, like many other federal states, has a capital federal district. This would eliminate that, or they would have to create new laws that allowed the federal district to be inside its own state. Brazil has Brasilia, Germany has Berlin, and both aren't states but exist within the federal system with their own specific status.
Okay, so there's precedent for this. It's not like America is the only country that has this sort of system in place.
If Washington, D.C. became independent, it would rank 49th by population, 51st by area, 1st by GDP per capita, 1st by median household income, and 34 by total GDP. In 2016, the mayor called for a vote and a proposed state constitution was released. The vote happened, and from those who voted, 86% wanted statehood. The flag could stay the same, but it is arguable what they would call the new state. I guess Columbia would be the best name.
Yeah.
Some claim New Columbia, Potomac after the river, or Douglas. Then we have the 5 territories. These are American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. Let's start with the one most people argue should achieve statehood, Puerto Rico. It's located around 1,600 kilometers.
I honestly thought Puerto Rico was a country. I thought it was its own country. Isn't it? Wow. Today I learned.
Off the coast of Florida to the south, being a part of the Caribbean. Puerto Rico has a very interesting situation. It is the world's oldest colony. It was first colonized by the Spanish in 1493, and since it remains as an unincorporated territory of the US since 1898, it's still technically considered a colony now of the Americans. Despite this, Puerto Ricans have been US citizens since 1917 and can move freely between the island and the rest of the US. Like DC, they have a non-voting representative in the House, but no senators. But only some residents pay federal income tax. The territory's total population is approximately 3.4 million.
So it would be quite high for a state, but then I imagine California's population is like 30 million, so it probably wouldn't be. It'd probably be kind of average size for a state in terms of population.
More than 21 US states. So it would become the 29th most populous should it join the Union. In 2012, they voted in a referendum, and the majority of people wanted to become a state. In 2017, they voted again, and statehood won with 97%, although only 23% of people voted. But there is also another option.
That's still a good sample size. If 23% voted, that's still like 800,000 people, you know?
Full-on independence. For instance, the UN Special Committee on Decolonization has often referred to Puerto Rico as a nation in its reports, because internationally, the people of Puerto Rico are often considered to be a Caribbean nation with their own national identity. The US itself seems somewhat divided as to whether they want Puerto Rico as a state or not. Various presidents throughout history publicly supported it, like Ford, Reagan, Bush Sr., amongst others. Next, we have Guam. Guam is an organized territory of the United States in Micronesia in the western Pacific Ocean. It's the westernmost point and territory of the United States. The inhabitants of Guam are called Guamanians, and they are American citizens by birth, reaching in 2016 around 163,000 people. Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan while in the service of Spain, was the first European to visit the islands in 1521, and it was also then colonized by Spain in 1668. During the Spanish-American War, the United States captured Guam in 1898, and after the peace treaty, Spain permanently ceded it to the US. It has some movements which advocate US statehood, or union with the state of Hawaii, or union with the Northern Mariana Islands as a single territory, or even independence.
What is the incentive for America, current America, for granting statehood to a place like Guam? Does it come with financial incentives, I guess, because maybe increased tax revenue, or maybe they'd have more control over the land so they could maybe use it for, I don't know, agriculture or manufacture of materials? I'm just trying to think of why, you know, what, because it's already a territory, you know, so the US already has, you know, quite a lot of influence over it. What would be, are there any financial incentives, or are the financial incentives more for the people of Guam as opposed to, you know, the leadership of the USA?
Apparently, the local government has began a UN-supported program to educate its people on what the different types of options they have, free association, statehood, independence, etc., so that they can eventually hold a vote for it. A 2016 poll conducted by the University of Guam showed a majority supporting statehood. An unofficial but frequently used territorial motto is "Where America's Day Begins," since it's close to the international dateline. So who knows, maybe it'll be where America's new statehood expansion begins as well. Then there's an interesting case, Chicago. To be honest, this one seems like kind of a joke, and the very few people who advocate for it seem to be politically motivated other than any other type of ideal.
Why would Chicago be granted statehood? This one makes no sense to me because, you know, Chicago's known as a city, a very big, populous city. Why does it need to become a state?
They're upset that the people who live in Chicago have, according to them, too much power over what goes on in the rest of the entire state. Essentially, this would take the city of Chicago out of the state of Illinois and become its own independent state. A bill was put forward at the State House to vote for this, but it obviously got almost no support and failed. The new state would either be called Chicago or New Illinois, but let's be real here, it's never going to happen. Another territory that could become number 51 is American Samoa. American Samoa is also an unincorporated territory of the US located in the South Pacific Ocean, southeast of the actual independent nation of Samoa, being the southernmost territory of the US. It has approximately 56,000 people and only 199 square kilometers, although it's still slightly larger than Washington, D.C. Interestingly, American Samoa is noted for having the highest rates of military enlistment of any US state or territory. The Dutch were the first non-native to arrive in Samoa, but the islands were then separated between Germany and the US. Germany took what is now the independent Samoa, and the US took their current territory. This was around 1899, but their status has remained pretty much unchanged ever since. Apparently, they explored the possibility of statehood in 2005 and 2017, but neither of the times did they manage to achieve the title of the 51st American state. Also, they have one of the coolest flags ever. Samoa is part of an archipelago.
Hang on, is this the Samoan flag? That is pretty cool, to be fair. You know, it's got an eagle on it. Is that a bald eagle? I think it is. Carrying some kind of scepter, some kind of sword. That is pretty cool. And it's got the American colors on there, you know, red, white, and blue. I like it.
One of the coolest flags ever. Samoa is part of an archipelago that doesn't entirely belong to the US, and the same case happens with the US Virgin Islands. Officially the Virgin Islands of the United States, these are a group of Caribbean islands and an unincorporated and organized territory of the United States. The islands are geographically part of the Virgin Islands archipelago and are located east of Puerto Rico and west of the British Virgin Islands, which take up the rest of the archipelago. Previously known as the Danish West Indies of the Kingdom of Denmark, they were sold to the United States by Denmark in 1917. Current estimates put the population at around...
I would love to know how much they were sold for, just because the idea of selling a landmass of that size, I mean, it's got to be in the billions, right? Of dollars or pounds, it has to be, surely.
Around 107,000. There doesn't seem to be any effort towards statehood, but in 1933 there was a status referendum where people got 3 choices. 1, becoming a territory. 2, integration. This wasn't specified, but I guess the only way would be statehood. And 3, independence. 81% voted to be a territory, but participation was under 50%, so the results were not valid. However, that is the current status of the islands today. Next and finally are the option of the Northern Mariana Islands. The Northern Mariana Islands, officially the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, are an insular area and Commonwealth of the United States, consisting of 14 islands in the northwestern Pacific Ocean. The status of Commonwealth is reserved for only 2 U.S. territories, the Northern Marianas and Puerto Rico. This means essentially that the territory has its own constitution and self-government, and only through their own decision will these be revoked in order to fully be integrated in the US.
Wow, so they would have to surrender a lot of power, a lot of self-governing authority. I wonder if they would even do that.
These were originally a Spanish colony, then being ruled by Japan, and then the US until today. The islands are home to around 54,000 people, and it seems statehood is not on the agenda, but there has been some discussion regarding the reunification of the Mariana Islands, especially with Guam joining, like we saw before. There's also the case of the US's possessions, like the minor outlying islands. These are 8 U.S. insular areas in the Pacific Ocean: Baker Island, Howland, Jarvis, the Johnston Atoll, Kingman Reef, Island, Midway Atoll, Palmyra Atoll, and Wake Island, and one in the Caribbean Sea, which is Navassa Island. Except for the Palmyra Atoll, all of these islands are unincorporated and unorganized territories. As of 20...
So why would... There doesn't seem to be much of a need for any of these to become states. You know, I can't imagine what incentives, you know, if they're uninhabited or if they're very sparsely inhabited, you know, the tax revenue is going to be just immaterial, right? So I don't see any of these achieving statehood, to be honest.
19, none of the islands have any permanent residents, so I don't think there's really any point to these being thought of as possible states. In addition, we have other examples of places that could have become US states, but have since gone a different path. For instance, the Philippines had a small grassroots movement for US statehood. It had a significant impact during the early American colonial period, but is no longer a mainstream movement. Other possible states were mentioned on a video that I did a couple of weeks ago about proposed states that were never created, like the state of Jefferson, Deseret, or Texlahoma. If you want to see more about this, go to my channel and check that video out. And there is also a separate idea, not of current states dividing or territories / possessions becoming states, but of parts of other countries, or entire other countries joining the Union. Some very small movements have existed in Canada, which wanted some provinces to join the US, like Alberta or Quebec. Cuba also had some movements that wanted to fully incorporate it as part of the US. In 1870, the US Senate took a vote on an annexation treaty with the Dominican Republic, but it failed to proceed. In 1946, the US offered to buy Greenland from Denmark for $100 million, but Denmark refused to sell it. The Azores, Portugal's archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic, had a US-motivated movement to leave Portugal and join the US.
Wow, imagine, you know, buying part of another country. That's crazy. I mean, I guess it would give you a whole bunch of new resources, you know, anything that could be mined there or grown there. Agriculture, you'd have all that land to do with what you please. So I can understand why you'd want it.
And there's also a few other examples. So that was a quick overlook at what the 51st state of the US might be if it ever comes to exist. Maybe it'll be the Capital Federal District, maybe another random city, maybe a territory, maybe a possession, or maybe even a part of a separate independent country. From my perspective, the most likely case, if there is to be a 51st state, is that it will be Puerto Rico. It's the one that makes most sense out of all these cases. But who knows? If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below and tell me what you think.
A really fascinating topic. I really want to find out more about what a city or another country would gain by becoming an American state. I imagine there has to be quite a lot of financial incentive, perhaps the support, financial support from the US, you know, the ability for the citizens of that newly incorporated place to relocate for employment, perhaps. So there's got to be reasons why, especially, you know, later in the video, they were talking about, you know, parts of other countries being sold or wanting to join the US. Must be, you know, like there must be some real big financial opportunities or just other reasons why you'd want that to happen. Imagine, you know, a part of your country wants to surrender itself and then go join the US. It must be a bit of a blow for that other government, right? But yeah, really fascinating video. Really enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and keep throwing the recommendations my way. I know I say it all the time, but they genuinely help me out, because if I know you enjoyed watching something, I'll definitely enjoy reacting to it. So like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, keep throwing the recommendations, and I'll catch you in the next one.